Right. So call to order, roll call members. This is a special call meeting, Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember Dela Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Gross.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
And Councilmember Petros.
Here.
Okay.
Okay. We do have public present, so I would like to open this meeting up for public comment. Do we have any, well, would anyone like to speak? Please come up to the podium.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Servando Parapar. I live at 240 Cypress Drive here, and I have some comments that I hope that they will guide yourself into the deliberations in this meeting and in the following meeting at 6 o'clock. My first comment is that leaders should provide us with hope that is feasible and equitable resolutions to issues that are forthcoming. That's my first thought. The second thought is that leaders have responsibility for the climate that they create. That is to diminish rather than to stoke the fires of discontent and uncertainty that exists. And my third thought is a disciplined policy approach rather than politics, an objective analysis rather than gut-wrenching emotions should be the process to follow. And I am saying this because these issues, the issues that you're going to discuss at this 5 o'clock meeting and at the 6 o'clock meeting have been discussed by this council before, and conclusions have been reached, maybe not totally, but to revisit them at the last minute is not a good governmental process, in my opinion. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I don't know, I received an email on my desk that I've been instructed to read into the record. Does everyone have it?
Yes. What do you mean instructed to read in the record?
To be read in the record today at 5 p.m. meeting. Or I've been asked, excuse me. Okay, so I will read it. As public, yes, as public comment. So this is a public comment from a resident who requested to be read, excuse me. Good morning, Madam Mayor and council members. Respectfully, I would like to file an objection and express my dismay with the last-minute calling of this special meeting in executive session. As a former council member, it is my understanding that special, short-noticed meetings and executive sessions are limited to true emergencies. The setting and notice of today's special meeting is highly irregular and raises a red flag. Today's special meetings are not on the master calendar and were not requested by attorney at the last meeting. Notice of this special meeting was sent late Friday afternoon via Village Connect and was likely missed by many residents as weekend junk mail. Additionally, the Islander News has not had the time to give residents the notice that after 26 years we come to rely on. The subject of litigation is of great public importance, and I am sure that a lot of residents have no idea this meeting is being held. We can only agree that decisions that can potentially set impactful policy and have serious financial implications should be handled more thoughtfully. Today's approach creates a perception of a lack of transparency or that maybe something is going on that isn't quite right. The City of Miami Commission often operates in this fashion. Political motives are often behind this last-minute unnecessary meetings. Furthermore, I am aware that the subject being brought up tonight has already been thoroughly discussed in an earlier meeting and consensus was reached on how to proceed with the litigation matter. Is this an attempt to tie the hands of our future counsel? The candidates running for our council who will be elected in 1 week are intelligent, experienced, and qualified. I am sure that they are more than capable of understanding the lawsuit and all of its implications and making fair decisions about it. It is very upsetting to have a lame duck council wanting to change things at the very last second. For all of the reasons stated above, and with only good wishes for Key Biscayne to maintain its high standards of excellence in our government practices, I ask that the executive session on the issue you have already voted on not be held tonight. Sincerely, Betty Sim Conroy. Okay, that's it.
You want to close public comment? So we can.
I am now closing public comments.
So we have the purpose of this is before us. Is there, the purpose is to direct you to call an executive session. Since this is my suggestion, I think for all of the reasons stated above, I don't discern in what you read and the information that came from Betty's letter, really anything even legitimate. I think it's just all wrong. There's a laudable purpose that I think this council has demonstrated in identifying issues that need to be addressed, in our opinion, and we dedicate the time and resources and make ourselves available, even off schedule, to be able to do business. So that's the way I see this. More specifically, I came to this suggestion after thinking about the outcome at the last executive session, which of course followed public notice about the litigation. There's no secret about the litigation. It's been the subject of public discussions at regular meetings, and if the community is not aware of the fact that there's pending litigation, it's not because of the timing of this meeting, which was perfectly timely and appropriate in any event. But to give my colleagues an opportunity to understand why I thought to do this at this time, I laid out my rationale, and a number of my colleagues agreed. So here we are. So I think you should call this the executive session, and we should take the next 40 minutes and discuss what we're going to discuss.
Do we take a vote on whether we call the executive session? How does this work?
Yes.
I mean, the majority of the council is our client. So if the majority of the council wants us to call an executive session, we're going to call it. We're here. You know, we're ready. We've pre-noticed the executive session for 5:15. We have a court reporter, so we'll leave it in your hands.
Please do a roll call.
I think we've already decided to have this executive session because of the decision made when it was broached in the first place.
I don't know that that's the case.
We can take a vote. I don't mind doing that. I guess if we're going to take a vote, I should be more elaborate in my reaction to Betty's letter. This was not short notice. This was notice and procedure consistent with, what is it, 401 in our charter. It is not a limited purpose to emergencies. The notice requirement in the charter is simply 24 hours or as much time as you can afford to take into account everyone's scheduling and meeting on a special basis. The emergency is the emergency prong is if there's not sufficient time to give 24 hours notice. This is not in any respect highly unusual. We've done this all the time on a whole lot of issues as we feel the need to do so. The litigation, all litigation is the subject of executive session. It must be that way. There's no secret about the fact, as I said a little while ago, that there is pending litigation. The question before us is, and the reason that I think 4 members of us decided to do this is the thought that we have been living with this issue for years, and the new council is going to include people who will not have been living with this issue for years. There had been an idea proffered that never came to council that could possibly lead to a resolution if the next council decides that they'd like to settle instead of litigate. That's what I think we're going to discuss if we get through this vote, and be able to make a recommendation to the next council, because it's going to have to come back to the next council. We're out of time. So we will not be making a decision that will substantively dispose of this litigation one way or the other. But we will be able, if we get there in 40 minutes, to be able to make a recommendation that I think the next council will find helpful, because we know more than they can possibly know. So that's what I have to say about this.
Okay. Our next speaker is Luis, and then Gary's going to speak.
Not because I think that I have any reason to change my position from the last meeting, which I am not going to. I think we need to do our due diligence with respect to this particular situation, and we need to do what we need to do without discussing more, because it's obviously executive session material. But I would like to have this short meeting, if nothing more, to hear Frank's position on the issue, only because he's not going to be here after next week. So for that reason, I will vote to have the executive session. Other than that, I'm not going to change my position.
Thank you. Gary.
So will I. I just want to make one quick statement for the record. I find this a little bit offensive. We aren't doing this to tie anybody's hands. This problem occurred during our watch. Many of us have been spending a tremendous amount of time dealing with this problem and trying to figure out how to resolve it. And what Frank said about the next council being completely new to this and not having any information about it and having to start the learning curve all over again is simply not fair to them. Not only are we not tying their hands, it's not fair to them. This is our problem. We need to deal with it the best we can, and I think we should move forward and just have this session and see what we can accomplish.
Gary, how have we been working on it? Because we were served with a pleading a couple of weeks ago.
It's not the litigation we've been serving on. It's this working on. It's trying to resolve this problem with various conversations with our with our pension consultants, with various conversations some of us have had offline with our former manager, and trying our best to figure out a way out of this. So this isn't just a litigation matter. This has been going on for a very long time before the litigation even was effective.
Can I speak?
Yes, Katie, of course.
Okay. First of all, I was not in favor of doing the executive session. And I think there is an unorthodox component to what we're doing, because technically a lawyer has to call the executive session. And so they couldn't even do that till we have this meeting. And we've brought people here we've brought 2 more lawyers and a court stenographer here with the thought that we're going to have an executive session. So if we actually didn't have it, that would be a waste of a lot of people's time and money. And typically they would call it and we would ask for a date. So this is a somewhat special circumstance that we find ourselves in tonight, I think. Secondly, to Gary's point, I don't think this situation occurred under at least my watch. I've been here for 2 years. I've been studying it for almost 2 years, but it happened in 2012 when someone made a decision, and we have to go back in time and try to figure that out. So I'm perfectly fine and happy to hear people's opinions, and I've spent a lot of time looking at all of the documentation, but I still feel that as we said before, we haven't given this time to get objective advice from our legal counsel, who are also being covered by insurance. So we really aren't doing anything wrong by taking time to look at this properly. The litigation started very recently. So those are my...
Yes.
So, Katie, I agree with you that this is a special circumstance and we're maybe going about it differently. What I see is it's a special circumstance because we have an outgoing council member for whom this is his last meeting, who has something he wants to share that could very well help those of us who will still be here to form our opinion and to guide our future colleagues, right? And the idea that we would even consider not wanting to hear additional information and idea. Nobody's asking anyone by voting whether or not to have a meeting to make a decision. It's to listen and to hear. I mean, we paused because we wanted to gather more information. Someone has it to share. We're all here. I can't imagine that we would not want to have this meeting.
Brett, do you want to speak?
I'll keep it short because I think we should just call this the vote. But again, I think we have the advantage right now that we have 2 council members on this board that were involved directly into this negotiation. And in about 2 weeks, they're not going to be here anymore. So I'm okay. Let's listen to what you guys have to say. And this will come down to the new council to make the decision anyway. So let's just make this a vote and let's move forward.
Okay, I just want to say one thing, or a couple of things. I am agnostic as to whether we have this special meeting, this executive session or not, but I do caution all of us. I don't think we've been given a real analysis by our attorneys about what the merits of the case are. I don't think we have all the facts, and I think we need to be a lot more informed and educated before we can make any decisions. I see today's executive session as a very small sliver of what the big picture is, and to think that we can fast track it because there's some earth-shattering information that was going to make us, come up with, and based on your memo, I just want to caution everyone because I think we need to be a lot better informed and really understand that. And I do think by the time we get up to speed, it's going to be well into the next council. And so, but if you want to share what you want to share, but I agree. Well, but we also need to know what the merits of the case are. We also need to know what all the facts are. My understanding is we are still fact-finding. So how can we make decisions without all the facts?
I don't think anybody's going to make
Okay,
decisions.
so let's
Let's take a vote and go with
please.
it.
I think that it seems to me that I can see that there's a general consensus that we call the executive session. So, I mean, if you would prefer, I can just call the executive session. We don't have to have a motion.
Let me just close the public meeting then.
Well, I have to call the executive
Okay.
session at a public meeting.
Thank you.
Last statement, just so that the record includes the proposition that I had to leave early during the last executive session. To Luis's point, I was not able to participate in that meeting.
Okay. All right. I'd like to call an executive session for John C. Gilbert versus Key Biscayne, case number 2018-03080, CA01 Division 11, the 11th Judicial Circuit, Miami-Dade County. The purpose of this executive session is to seek advice regarding this litigation. This executive session has already been noticed, and we do have a court reporter present. Mayor, I think it's appropriate now that you can close the public meeting.
I am now closing the public meeting. Everyone who has not been listed by our attorney, please, if you could please step out of our room. We will be locking the front door and opening our executive session.